Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small, a podcast about brand development, entrepreneurship, and innovation in the modern world. In this episode, I'm joined by Ksebati, CEO and founder of MySwimPro. In 2016, MySwimPro was named Apple's top app for the Apple Watch. And in 2020, Ferris and his co-founders were named Forbes 30 Under 30 for the consumer technology category. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by CEO and co-founder of MySwimPro, Ksebati. Ferris, thank you so much for joining me today.
Cameron, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. So I want to start out with your childhood. So where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
For sure. And thanks for having me on. I am from Michigan, born and raised, and I'm from actually a suburb just north of Detroit. And our suburb is located on Lake St. Clair. So pure Michigan, we have lakes. So I grew up around the water. And what's interesting is my parents actually, they don't know how to swim. So They came, I'm first generation American. So they came to the United States from Syria by way of Oklahoma and eventually made their way to Michigan. I definitely think that definitely had an influence. And cutting to the swimming, they wanted me to learn how to swim. So my older brother, my younger sister, we were signed up in swim lessons as kids and learned how to swim pretty young. And it's something that I fell in love with. And I think it's had a significant impact on what I do today and what I'll probably do the rest of my life.
Absolutely. So when did you start swimming? What age?
I learned how to swim at four or 5 years old. Yeah, just swim lessons, nothing crazy. Just at the local park, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and running the program.
That's amazing. So did you guys ever get a pool in your home or in your yard or no?
No, we were more modest than that. We didn't have a swimming pool in our house, but fortunate. The area we grew up in was really nice, and there were a lot of public pool access. So during the summer, because the winters up here in the Midwest are brutal. So in the summer, we had the opportunity to go swimming, and there is even a beach and a lake, but primarily it was in the pool. And I think the area that I grew up in, swimming was very much a part of the culture. So everyone learns how to swim, and it's very integrated in just your way of life. Growing up, a lot of kids are on swim team, and I started on the swim team when I was 8 years old.
Wow. Okay. And then in 2013 is when you went to study at Wayne State University for business. Did you go on to swim there with a scholarship?
Yeah, so I actually graduated in 2013. So I started 2009, and I swam through high school. I swam at university. I was actually a walk-on athlete. It's funny because I still compete in masters and open water and stuff. But a lot of people think they're like, oh wow, like you must have had a scholarship. Now, I mean, the university I was at, Wayne State University in Detroit, they did have scholarships, but I was a walk-on athlete, and I think that's one area I'm proud of is the fact that I basically had to try out for the team my freshman year. I didn't really know I knew swimming, but I didn't really know necessarily how the college system really worked fundamentally like I do now. And so I was a walk-on, I tried out, and then by the time I was senior, I was elected co-captain, and we won 3 consecutive conference championships. So, not to say that like I was like the superstar leading the pack. I was definitely middle of the pack and in many regards, but to be a part of a really competitive team. Our women's team won NCAAs my junior year, and I was there actually for the NCAAs my senior year. So definitely, top powerhouse program in the NCAA Division II, and a lot of international athletes too. Top national champions from their respective countries. So it was a great environment to be in during school.
That's awesome. What were your main events?
I swim and still swim breaststroke. That's definitely my forte. And in college, I ended up actually swimming a little bit of everything. I even swam the mile for points in the championship. I swam the 400 IM. I did the 50, but I was really only decent at breaststroke. And today, that's what I still compete in, and also like the individual medleys. So 100 IM and master swimming is my jam.
Gotcha. So leaving college, what were some of the main jobs that you were working as soon as you graduated?
Yeah, so I got into the startup world pretty much immediately. Actually, during school, I did an internship at a startup that sold this company called SwimSpray, and it's a product that eliminates chlorine from your hair and skin. So I worked in the summers as an intern. So, I actually got involved in the entrepreneurial scene for swimming like very early. As a teenager, 20 years old. But even before that, actually, before getting into startups after school, I actually was a swim coach. And so I started coaching USA Club when I was 17. And I did that during the year, which is actually really uncommon for a, varsity athlete to have almost a full-time job. It was, 20 to 30 hours a week on top of training 20 to 30 hours a week. And a lot of people actually didn't even know that, even on the team, they're like, oh yeah, he's coaching or whatever. It's like, no, I'm at the pool for like 4 hours after being at this pool for 4 hours in addition to a full-time course load. So I definitely think that had an impact on like what I do now. But then out of school, I continued to coach a little bit, but then I worked at a few different technology startups, fewer venture backed, and doing a lot of marketing. Is really, I studied business, specialized in marketing management, and then I worked in the marketing side of things in the tech startup world before launching my own tech startup.
Okay, so you were pretty much in the swim world your whole career, like no other really niches outside of that. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think to clarify, so I was involved in swimming for, now it's been maybe 20 years in some capacity, but I worked, the other companies I was at, one was human resources software, B2B. Okay. Another one was an e-commerce company. Another one was actually a nonprofit, is a fellowship program called Challenge Detroit. So I worked at those, and I was still doing the swimming stuff on the side, but definitely got exposure into a lot of different areas. And I think this is sort of random, but, to kind of speak on like my childhood and the entrepreneurial path. So it wasn't really until I was in college or after college. It was even before that. It was actually like I was 13 and I started doing, marketing jobs for hire. I would do like video production. So I had, there's one I recall, it was a local artist. He hired me to do a filming session with him and record it and produce it to a DVD back in the day of DVDs. And it was funny because he thought I was a lot older than I was. So he thought I would like drive to the venue to film everything, and my mom drove me, and it's because I was like 13. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine, your mom can take you to do the job. But that's I would say how I got started. And then actually a few years later, I know we skipped over this stuff, but a few years later when I was still in high school, I actually did a program with Panasonic. So I wrote an essay actually, and I won $20,000 worth of Panasonic high definition equipment. So this was back when high definition was, now everything is in high definition 4K, but back in my time of high school, high definition was like the new thing. And, I had all these technology products, and the idea was to figure out how to use them all together and give product feedback. And, we're talking like high definition camera, TV, laptop, different things like that, and they all integrate together. So that was really an interesting experience. But I think all of those, whether it's the video at age 13 or this, Panasonic high definition living program when I was in high school, I think they all combine as experience to where I'm at now.
I completely agree. Like I would say that learning video is so crucial, especially now at times, like trying to market your products. If you can learn the video and the graphic design work, like you're already a step ahead, like just as you said. I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you can please explain the development of MySwimPro, the inspiration behind creating the app. So what forced you to kind of go this direction?
Yeah, I always thought of myself as entrepreneurial, but I didn't think I'd start like a swimming related company. So it was more so just seeing a problem that wasn't being solved. And I figured I'm in a very good position to do this better than most people. So I was still coaching. And then after a while, you kind of leave the bubble of college swimming and you're in the real world, right? So when you graduate from college or high school, it depends for different people. And so I'm in the real world, and I realized that most people, when they go swimming, they don't have a coach. They don't have a team that they train with. They go to like, the local gym and they swim for 30 minutes or an hour, and it's very loose. There's not a lot of structure. So if you have a goal and you're trying to get better, it's very difficult to do that when you're swimming on your own. If you go to a gym, it's very easy to join a yoga class or a swimming class. Like they have these, multiple times per day, every single day. Go to an LA Fitness or another gym and see when the swimming class is. Most likely they don't have one, even if they have a pool. And so I realized this as a coach, and I had swimmers asking me that I either swam with or I'd coached at some point. They're asking me for workouts. They're asking me for the thing that's missing. And that's solved if you go to a lot of gyms for, when you have a yoga class. And I looked, and okay, well, how are people currently solving this problem? And they'll go to Google and they'll type in, beginner swim workout, or how do I do this specific skill? And there's certainly resources out there, but in my opinion, they were not really doing the job. And that's why people were asking me because, if they had the answer, then we wouldn't have this problem. So that was in 2014. And that's really what motivated me, was actually just continuously having swimmers and other athletes that I had swam with at one point, or I'd coach, asking me for workouts, asking me for training programs, for advice. And I figured, you know what, there's so many other fitness applications out there that basically do this for weightlifting or running or yoga, meditation. You can just list every single activity. And there were a ton of apps out there for each of those. But there was nothing really doing it for swimming. And that's what got me motivated to do more research and eventually take the first steps and make it happen.
Gotcha. So how did you know to actually put it onto a platform? Was this straight onto an app or YouTube? Because the development side of the process is a completely different side. I don't know if your co-founders hopped in and helped you with that side, or did you know how to do it yourself?
This is a really good question. I get asked all the time, I have this idea for an app, or should I make an app? Should I just do this in video? And to be honest, most of the time you actually don't need to make an application. There's sometimes when it makes a lot more sense than others. I mean, if you think about it, if we rewind what the problem is I was trying to solve, I mean, maybe you could do it all with a YouTube channel. Maybe you could do it all with a blog. The thing that I saw, which is where, I mean, we have all those today, but where I didn't think that was solving the problem, I saw there were bloggers out there were videos, but they were kind of all over the place and they were sort of generic. And this is really what we try and do at MySwimPro better than anyone in the world, is we try and personalize the content and the training program. So that way it's not just a generic blog article, because that's what a coach does. A coach doesn't just give every single person the same workout. They recognize what your goal is, what your problems are, and they try and custom fit a program that makes sense for you. So for me, I didn't want to just write another blog, because there's plenty of those, and it's not really solving the problem. So I knew that there needs to be some software element that can not just give you one workout. And to be honest, the first version of the app actually was very, very basic. And I think that's super key, because you do have to start basic. You can't, throw everything in the kitchen and try and do it on the first go. So the way we went from this idea to an actual application, because I studied business. I'm not the technical, person. I'm technical, but not on the software engineering side of things. So all the time people ask me, okay, so you studied business, so how do you actually make the app? So I started on my own. I created, in Photoshop, I created some mock-ups. I put together a landing page. It was, at the time, it was called MySwimPro.com. Now it's MySwimPro, but it was MySwimPro.com. I had the URL. I set up a Twitter account. And on this website, you had a mock-up, like what the app would look like with a few different bullet points. And I had an email capture that you can put in your email to download this app. And so the whole point of doing this was really validating, was this a good idea that people actually wanted? Was it something people would pay money for? And what specifically were they actually looking for? So before writing a single line of code, before having anything in the App Store, it was just really validating a lot of the assumptions that I had that I was trying to figure out. So, very quickly in Photoshop, and there's so many tools now that you can do this, and you can put together, basic application stuff. Had a website, and I used Twitter to drive traffic to that website. I had a couple hundred people put in their email to download this app that didn't even exist yet, but I was using it as validation that, these are the things that they're looking for. And those initial conversations led me to a pitch event where I actually, presented my findings, what I was trying to do. I met up and I eventually recruited basically my two co-founders now. And that was all in a matter of a few weeks. And so, I go to an event called Detroit Startup Weekend. We put together the first version of the application for Android, and voila, a couple months later, that very basic version was out in the App Store. And it's interesting to look back on it now, because it's been pretty much 5 years. But the first version of the app was so basic. And if anything, it could have even been more basic, because what a lot of people, what they overlook is they think that it has to be so feature rich. And this isn't just for an app. This is literally starting any business. If you're starting a restaurant, you're starting a website, a pop-up e-commerce, whatever. Everything that you're doing, you probably don't need to do to the extent that you think you need to make it. Basically, you need to find what is the most valuable thing that people are either going to pay money for or they're going to use, and only focus on that, make that really solid, and then add the next thing on top of that. You don't need everything. So for us in the swimming context, you would think, oh, you need a personalized dynamic. It's got to have analytics. You've got to sync with all these different smartwatches. And by the way, a lot of the smartwatches that exist today didn't exist back in the day. But, you'd think you need this fully think about Facebook or Instagram and how many different features there are, and you think you need to have all of that in the first version. And the reality is you only need like 10% of that. You need just the most important 10% of that. And you can actually if you look at your phone and you look at the apps that you use on a daily basis, they have a lot of features that you don't use that often or don't use at all or don't even know exist. There's probably some core functionality. And I always tell people, like, just look at the apps on your phone. These are used by a lot of people to do most likely one specific thing. And they focus on making that one thing really, really good. And everything else is sort of like the fluff that's a nice to have. So when you launch something, it's got to be that, like, the most important 10% part.
Yeah, for sure. So if you can explain to the listeners who are unaware, what does MySwimPro offer in specs? So it's a virtual swim coach. What is expected when they log on to this app?
Yeah, definitely. So when you first download the app, and I'll try and contextualize it if you're not a swimmer. So basically, there's some basic questions asking you about your skill level, your goals, if you're trying to, improve your endurance, if you want to do an open water swimming race or a triathlon, versus you want to focus on speed and you're more performance enhanced. So as you go through a few screens and selecting your goals, we then recommend a training program that's personalized to you based on what you told us. And then the personalization goes to the next level if you know like how fast you are. So for example, if you know how, like in running, if you know how fast you can run a mile or a 5K, the equivalent in swimming is, we look at your times and then we personalize the intervals on all the workouts another level. So that way it really is a unique workout and training program. And then if you have a smartwatch, whether it's an Apple Watch, Fitbit, Garmin, Android Wear, you can then sync the training programs from your phone to your watch, and then it guides you through a workout set by set. If you imagine going to the gym and, okay, we're going to do, 5 rounds of 10 pull-ups and then 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups, we're basically doing the same program for swimming. So you're going to swim, 8 lengths freestyle, focusing on this. Then you're going to do 4 lengths of kicking, then 4 lengths of the individual medley, all the strokes on these different intervals, focusing on these different things. And if you have a smartwatch, all of the data is going to be captured. It all comes back into the app, and then you can see all of the analytics. And we have video content and a lot of other things, but that's really the core. The core is walking you through a personalized swim workout.
Wow, that's amazing. So in 2016, your app was actually named the Apple App of the Year for the Apple Watch. And I was wondering, what factors would you say has made your app stand out from your competitors?
Yeah, that was crazy. So App of the Year, a lot of people, when we have that on our marketing and we tell people this is the App of the Year by Apple, or that we say App of the Year and people are like, oh, that's cool. Like, who said that? Like some, magazine or whatever. Like, no, Apple. Like,
Apple, that's huge.
Apple, like the company that is worth $1.5 trillion or whatever it's trading at these days. So, we were in 2016, we were the first swimming app to launch on the Apple Watch when it became water resistant. And we were in, like Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, he does these, keynotes like once or twice a year where they announce stuff. And we were actually in a slide behind Tim Cook, like our app icon on the iPhone screen on stage. And like we took a screenshot of that and used it all the time. But it was really cool. And then later that year, MySwimPro was named App of the Year by Apple. So I think the reason why we were, and this is something people think, oh, like how much money did you get, or how do you apply for that? And really, Apple actually just, they know what's on their platform and they pick it from an internal editorial team. So you really can't like apply for this. There's no money. You don't get any money. It's just a great recognition. But I think the reason why Apple chose MySwimPro for that platform, and each platform has a different app category winner. So for the iPad, it was Twitter. For iPhone, it was this photo editing app. And so for the Apple Watch, it was MySwimPro. And I think the reason is because we basically took we took the Apple Watch and we gave it great functional applications. So, at the time, people were like, oh, it's a smartwatch. That's interesting. I guess why would I need another computer on my wrist? I have my iPhone, or, I have my iPad, I have my MacBook Pro, and here's this new product category. And you think, well, why would I need this? And we honestly give that product the most application of any probably app still today. Because if you think about it, all the other apps, you can probably run them on your phone. But when you're in a swimming pool, how are you going to, you're not going to take your phone into the pool. It's not convenient on the side. And then for all of the analytics that the watch can capture, like your heart rate, using the gyroscope to track how many strokes you're taking, and all the metrics associated with swimming, Like you really can't do that with a phone. Whereas most apps, it's a nice to have on the Apple Watch. And so for us, we were sort of the first, application that leverages this new hardware technology. And on top of that, I think we took, on the fitness side, we sort of redefined what personal coaching means on a wearable device. So, there were a lot of fitness apps, and there still are on the iPhone and Android. And it has videos that walks you through a workout plan. But to do that on your wrist while you're swimming and, breaking at the wall and stuff, I think that's really what really empowered the team at Apple to choose MySwimPro, as opposed to maybe like, I don't know, a finance app or something like that. So we're really happy, humble, and thankful that we have that opportunity. And, Apple's been kind to us. We've been App of the Day a couple of different times in the United States and a few other countries. So to get that kind of featuring continuously is really nice.
Yeah, that's huge exposure. That's amazing. So looking at MySwimPro today, around how many users would you say that the app has had, if you have any analytics around that?
Right. We have about 1.2 million downloads. And so like from accounts, it's about 1 million accounts. The thing that's interesting is just looking at how it's evolved, how it's grown. So in the very beginning, like if you do the math, okay, so it's been 5 years, you have 1 million downloads. So it's like 200,000 a year, divide that by 365. And that's actually not the right way to look at it because it's not very linear. So in the very beginning, we were doing, like a few downloads a day. And I think anyone who launches an app, whether it's Android or iOS, like you shouldn't actually expect to get more than a few downloads per day.
For sure.
And I think that's one thing that's really challenging because if you were to ask me, what our numbers look like now compared to what I thought they would look like 5 years ago, they'd actually look a lot different, some more, some less. And so I guess the learning here is that you can really only control what you can control and really focus on that. And if you're consistent, it'll compound over time. So we were consistent at improving the app and, growing the brand and marketing. So those, 5 downloads a day eventually became 50 downloads a day and then 500 downloads a day. And then there were days we were hitting over 1,000 downloads per day, before the pandemic, right? Right now the pandemic is sort of thrown a wrench. That's a whole other thing. But, you got to remember, we were doing 3 downloads a day. So to go from 3, that's why I say it's not linear. So in the first year, it was maybe a few hundred, a few thousand downloads versus like over 250,000 last year. So it's definitely different.
For sure. Yeah, I was wondering, as you said, the pandemic, how have numbers kind of changed since COVID started? Have they increased because people are at their homes pools now, or did they decrease, or are they just kind of staying neutral? Did you notice any trends?
Yeah, no, it's completely changed everything. It's pretty crazy. It's interesting too how it's affected, not like every industry is affected a little bit different from the global pandemic, but in fitness in particular, some areas of fitness are just exploding. Like your at-home workout type apps, they're stronger than they were before. Meanwhile, you have gyms that are forced to close, and so they're just getting killed. And I think for us, we're kind of in the middle. We're getting killed in some areas. We're seeing growth in other areas. So overall, to be completely transparent, this is not good for us in the short term because a lot of pools, not everyone has a 25 or 50 meter pool in their backyard. Most people
That's
don't.
true.
And so most people rely on going to a gym or a school or a facility to go swimming. Well, what happens when you shut down most of those? I mean, pretty much all of them in March and April were shut down all over the world. So we did a survey. We've done actually 3 so far. It's mid-2020 now. And so 6 weeks apart. And every survey, we would ask people, what is your access to a pool? If you don't have access, when do you think you'll have access? Open water versus pool versus backyard pool. And I mean, the numbers were ugly in the beginning of this pandemic. I mean, it was over 90% of people didn't have access to a swimming pool. And so when we're a subscription business, we're like Netflix for swimming. So imagine you have a Netflix subscription and all of a sudden someone takes away your phone, TV, and computer. Are you going to want to keep paying for your Netflix subscription? Some people won't care and they'll just be like, well, it'll come back eventually. Others are sensitive to the fact that, well, I'm not using this and I have no reason to pay for this, or I just lost my job, or there's a lot of uncertainty. I don't really want to keep paying for something I know that I can't use right now. So in the beginning of the pandemic, we were just getting killed just from that logic. And then a few weeks later, a month and a half later, that number went from 90% pool closure around the world to 70% pool closure. So it's still terrible if you think about it, but it's not as bad. And today in mid 2020, we're looking at 35% pool closure. So on the one side, oh my God, like 35% is like gone. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is. On the flip side, it's not like our app is on every single swimmer's phone in the world. And so you just, take a third off the potential. If this continues forever, then yeah, I mean, it's not going to be the full growth potential. But I think we've been able to do some really smart things and help people out of the water with training and staying in shape and providing open water content. So that way, when this does pass, which might take another 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, basically by 2022, when we have a full year, we're going to be in a stronger position than we are right now. The unfortunate thing is we have to kind of get through this next, year and a half. That's
yeah, totally. So what would you say the main demographic is for downloads on MySwimPro?
Definitely. Great question. Mm-hmm. It's when people ask like, oh, so it's anyone who knows how to swim or swims uses your app. It's sort of, not really. It's a little bit more focused than that. It's people who have a specific fitness goal in mind. So, there are a lot of people who go to the pool and they just float back and forth and they don't want to track anything. They just want to go in there for 10, 15 minutes. We would like to help those people, but that's not really the core demographic. It's more a demographic of people who are either going to do a triathlon, an open water race, a master's competition. Maybe they, swam when they were 10, 11, 12 years old. They took a break for 20 years. And now as an adult, they want to swim 3 times per week for fitness. But because they know how to train, but they need that guidance. They need a coach. They want a team experience. And so they come to the app to get that structured program because they don't want to. I mean, imagine going to the gym and doing the exact same routine. You do curls, you do whatever you do literally every single day. That's not how you get better. You get bored, you get burned out, you plateau. So for swimming, it's the same thing. You want to have that variety. If anything, swimming, in my opinion, a lot of other people, it's one of the most boring activities you could do if you do it a lot. So, you're in a pool, you're looking at a black line on the bottom, you're going back and forth in a confined space. So when you think about it like that, it's like you really need variety to make it interesting, or else it can get boring. Now, there is the flip argument of, I'm 45 years old, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 75, and it gives me mental clarity and I feel amazing. And, that the boredom thing isn't even a question. And I think for everyone, you experience both sides of that. So for us, we want to help these, this adult fitness market. And it's global. I mean, people swim all over the world. So, our audience is over 180 different countries who've been downloaded. So it's not like it's an American thing or a European thing. I mean, our app is in 9 languages. So literally anywhere in the world, if you're going to go swimming, you're going to have the same opportunities and challenges. You're going to want someone to help you with your technique, with your structure, with your workouts. And it's pretty common. That's one thing that's amazing. Swimming is not something that's isolated. It's not like cricket or some other sports that are really only done in one part of the world. Swimming is very global, and we take advantage of that in building a global community.
Totally. In 2020, you and your co-founders were named Forbes 30 Under 30 in the consumer technology category. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on that. That's a huge honor.
Thanks so much.
For sure. And I wanted to just gather another piece of advice from you. If you could share one piece of advice to an inspiring entrepreneur, maybe a listener out there, what would that be? Maybe something you've learned, or maybe something you regret doing, just anything.
Yeah, I would say you need to get started. A lot of people, and myself even today, you have all these ideas, and it doesn't mean starting a company, actually. I want to be very clear with that. You don't have to start a company, but you need to get started with something. So whatever it is that's on your mind, and it could mean starting a website, a blog, a YouTube channel. Maybe you want to take on a new activity, or you want to learn how to do something, whether it's learning how to code, learning how to video edit, learning Photoshop. The best thing that you can do is to just get started, because really, tomorrow is going to be later. It's better today than tomorrow. It's better today than 3 months from now. And in certain circumstances, yes, maybe, you got a lot on your plate and it doesn't make any sense to add another thing right now, but you need to have a game plan of how you're going to get started. And a lot of people, when it comes to starting a company, they wait too long. They wait too long to do everything, and then they quit too early. It's like you waited too long to get started, and then you get started, and then you quit too early. So it's going to take time. May as well get started today.
For sure. Ferris, well, where could the listeners connect and find you, maybe on the social media and stuff?
For sure. If they want to learn about MySwimPro, it's MySwimPro.com, and all social media. You can go to the App Store and just type it in, MySwimPro, and you'll find it on the iOS and Android Google Play Store. And then for me personally, I'm on all social as well. Just my name, Ferris Ksebati. I'm lucky that I own all of the handles with my full name. So
nice.
Whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, I have a YouTube channel where I vlog about different things, entrepreneurship, behind the scenes of what it's like to build a company, helping entrepreneurs take their business to the next level, or even just get started. So I'm really passionate about sharing all that. So feel free to subscribe on YouTube and follow me on social, and happy to help.
Sounds great. Well, Ferris, thank you so much for joining me today. It means a lot.
No, I appreciate it. Good luck to all the entrepreneurs out there.
Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of Starting Small. If you would, leave a review on whatever platform you are listening on. Also, follow Starting Small Pod on social platforms to keep up to date on future guests.